In just 37 seconds, one tweet destroyed a decade of European diplomacy. Ursula von der Leyen didn't consult the Council. She didn't wait for Macron's approval or Schulz's guidance. Sitting alone in her 13th floor Berlaymont office, coffee growing cold beside her laptop, she simply pressed send on a message that would trigger the most devastating transatlantic crisis since World War II. Her finger hovered over the blue button for barely a heartbeat before commitment overtook caution. The notification sound echoed through her Brussels office at exactly 9:23 a.m. on a Tuesday morning that would forever change the balance of global power. While outside her window, the European quarter continued its routine business, oblivious to the political earthquake about to reshape continents. What did von der Leyen write that turned America's most powerful man into Europe's most dangerous enemy? I witnessed the moment everything unraveled. The European Commission president had crafted what she believed was a measured response to Trump's latest NATO criticism. Instead, she had just written the political equivalent of a declaration of war. Her tweet read, "America's isolationist rhetoric threatens the very foundation of democratic values. Europe will not be lectured by leaders who prioritize personal grievances over international stability." Within minutes, the tweet had been screenshot, analyzed, and forwarded to every major news outlet across 2 continents. But more importantly, it had landed directly on the phone of Donald Trump, who was finishing his morning intelligence briefing in the Oval Office. The president was reviewing classified reports about Chinese military movements when his phone buzzed with the Twitter notification. Sources close to the White House describe his reaction as volcanic. His jaw tightened, his eyes narrowed, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Intelligence officials present during the briefing report that Trump read the tweet aloud twice, his voice growing more dangerous with each word. He reportedly stared at the screen for a full 10 seconds, the silence becoming so oppressive that seasoned advisors shifted uncomfortably in their chairs, before turning to his staff and saying in a tone that froze blood, "She just made the biggest mistake of her political career." The irony was devastating. Von der Leyen had intended to project European strength and independence. Instead, she had given Trump exactly the justification he needed to implement the economic punishment that European leaders had been dreading since his election victory. The tweet wasn't diplomatic criticism, it was political suicide on a continental scale. At 9:47 a.m., exactly 24 minutes after von der Leyen's tweet, Trump's response arrived like a guided missile aimed at the heart of European prosperity. He didn't engage in Twitter diplomacy or issue measured statements through official channels. Instead, he called an emergency press conference and announced what would become known as the Brussels embargo. The United States would immediately impose a comprehensive trade suspension on all European Commission-controlled jurisdictions until, as Trump put it, Europe learns to show proper respect for American leadership. The numbers were catastrophic. $890 billion in annual trade between the US and EU was suddenly under threat. German automotive exports worth $67 billion annually faced immediate suspension. French luxury goods, Italian fashion, and Dutch agricultural products were all targeted for what Trump called reciprocal diplomatic treatment. The economic weapon was precise, brutal, and designed to cause maximum political pain to von der Leyen personally. But the real devastation was psychological. European leaders had spent months carefully managing Trump's ego, understanding that the new administration operated on personal relationships and perceived respect. Von der Leyen had shattered that delicate framework with a single social media post that prioritized her own political image over continental security. The immediate reaction within the European establishment was panic mixed with fury. Emmanuel Macron, who had invested considerable political capital in building a working relationship with Trump, was reportedly livid during an emergency call with von der Leyen. A leaked transcript of their conversation reveals the French president's brutal assessment. "You have endangered the economic security of 450 million Europeans to score points with Brussels journalists. This is not leadership, this is vanity." German Chancellor Olaf Scholz was even more direct in his criticism during a closed-door emergency session of the European Council. Sources describe his intervention as ice-cold and surgical as he dismantled von der Leyen's decision-making process. The Commission president confused Twitter engagement with foreign policy. Scholz reportedly said, "We are now paying the price for amateur hour in Brussels." The markets responded with predictable terror. The euro collapsed 3.2% against the dollar in the first hour of trading following Trump's embargo announcement. European stock indices plummeted as investors realized that the continent's entire economic model was suddenly under existential threat. The DAX fell 8.7%, the CAC 40 dropped 9.1%, and the FTSE MIB crashed by 11.2% as reality set in that this wasn't a negotiating tactic but a fundamental restructuring of global economic relationships. Von der Leyen's political isolation became complete when even her traditional allies began distancing themselves. The European People's Party, her own political family, issued a statement expressing deep concern about uncoordinated communication strategies that endanger European interests. This was diplomatic language for complete abandonment. The strategic implications extended far beyond trade statistics. Trump's embargo wasn't just economic punishment. It was a geopolitical restructuring that isolated Europe from its primary security guarantor. NATO operations requiring American coordination were immediately suspended. Intelligence sharing protocols were frozen. The Five Eyes alliance began operating as Four Eyes, with European partners excluded from critical security briefings. What made von der Leyen's miscalculation particularly tragic was the timing. European intelligence services had been warning for months that Trump's team was looking for any excuse to fundamentally realign America's global relationships. The president had privately expressed frustration with European ingratitude and was actively seeking justification for what his advisors called strategic disengagement. Von der Leyen had handed him that justification on a silver platter. The personal element cannot be ignored. Trump had initially shown willingness to work with von der Leyen, viewing her as a technocratic leader who could be managed through direct communication. Her tweet destroyed that possibility by publicly questioning his competence and attacking his character. In Trump's worldview, such disrespect demanded immediate and overwhelming retaliation. Behind closed doors, European diplomats were scrambling to contain the damage. Multiple sources confirmed that several member states began independent outreach to Washington, effectively undermining von der Leyen's authority and the Commission's role in external relations. Ireland quietly assured American officials that it remained committed to the transatlantic partnership. Poland explicitly distanced itself from Brussels' position, with Warsaw emphasizing its direct security relationship with the United States. The agricultural sector faced immediate devastation. American tariffs on European food exports weren't just economic measures. They were designed to cause maximum political pain in rural constituencies that had traditionally supported European integration. French wine producers, Italian olive farmers, and Spanish citrus growers suddenly faced complete exclusion from their most profitable market. Von der Leyen's attempt at damage control only made things worse. Her second tweet, posted 3 hours later, tried to clarify her position. Europe values its partnership with America and looks forward to constructive dialogue. Trump's response was immediate and humiliating. Too late. Should have thought about dialogue before the insults. Europe chose confrontation, America chooses consequences. The crisis deepened when Trump announced additional measures targeting the European Commission specifically rather than member states individually. This strategic decision was designed to demonstrate that von der Leyen's leadership was the problem, not European civilization broadly. American sanctions targeted EU institutions, Commission officials, and any organization that received Brussels funding. Legal challenges to Trump's embargo faced immediate obstacles. The World Trade Organization, already weakened by American withdrawal from its appellate body, proved unable to provide meaningful recourse. European attempts to rally international support fell flat as other nations recognized the futility of choosing sides between America and a politically wounded Europe. The ultimate irony was that von der Leyen's critique of Trump proved every single one of his points about European arrogance and ingratitude. Her tweet confirmed American suspicions that Europe viewed the United States as an unreliable partner while simultaneously demanding American protection and market access. The political gift to Trump's worldview was incalculable. As I write this analysis, von der Leyen's political future hangs by a thread. Multiple member states are privately discussing her removal from office. The European Parliament is preparing no-confidence procedures. Her own staff is reportedly updating their resumes as Brussels insiders recognize that her credibility has been permanently destroyed. The broader lesson extends beyond individual political careers. Von der Leyen's tweet demonstrated the dangerous gap between European elite assumptions and American political reality. Brussels had convinced itself that moral lecturing could substitute for strategic thinking. The price of that delusion is now being paid by European workers, farmers, and businesses who face economic devastation because their leaders prioritized Twitter activism over diplomatic competence. The transatlantic relationship may eventually recover, but it will require fundamentally different leadership and a European establishment willing to acknowledge that lectures and ultimatums are poor substitutes for respect and partnership. Von der Leyen's counterproductive critique didn't just damage her own career, it potentially altered the trajectory of Western civilization itself.